We have the great delight in our organization to have an executive director by the name of Kate Meis. And it's my pleasure this evening to introduce her to you. And then she has a function that she will describe very quickly. The main thing I want you guys to know about Kate Meis is, number one, she's a top-notch executive director. And secondly, she is in the forefront of some major efforts in the state of California dealing with climate adaptation. We have a Governor's Civic Spark local government capacity building program, which involves AmeriCorps people, and we have a statewide energy efficiency collaborative. These are three of the major programs with which she is involved and where she's taking a leadership role. And it's my great pleasure this evening to introduce to you Kate Meis.
Thank you, Jake. Well, good evening. You guys are obviously the dedicated ones that made it back, and we expect to see more folks trickling in. So I have the great pleasure of welcoming you on behalf of the Local Government Commission to the 14th Annual New Partners for Smart Growth Conference. Thank you for, yes, it's worth an applause. 14 years, that's pretty good. We're very proud to be producing this event with the U.S. EPA and with a number of fabulous sponsors who you saw listed on the screens beside me when you walked in and who are also noted on your brochure, your program, so take a look at that as well. We're delighted that you have joined us for what really is the largest and most comprehensive Sustainable Communities Conference in the nation. This conference will expose you to innovative ideas and successful strategies from across the country that respond to our most pressing community challenges. As a nonprofit organization with over 650 local government members, we've worked with trailblazers like you to transform communities for close to 35 years. We're looking at conserving natural resources from energy and water to working land, and creating great communities where people have access to sustainable transportation and affordable housing choices. And we rely on your innovation and your leadership to implement initiatives that can be scaled out across the nation. And that's what this conference is about, and that's what really makes this event so successful, is all the amazing things that you guys are doing across the nation. And working together, we can advance and spread models, and we can create a groundswell of change that can really result in national level change. But it starts at that local level, and it's at the local level where you can test new solutions, where you're closer to the problems, and you can identify opportunities. So we really appreciate all the work you're doing at the local level, and we know that it can catalyze national change as well. This year, the conference is focused on equipping you to implement new and proven models with the tagline of practical tools and innovative strategies for creating great communities. So that really underscores our emphasis on implementation this year around. And part of our implementation focus is we had a special session, and we'll have special sessions throughout the conference for local policymakers. We understand that you guys are the ones that are going to approve budgets, and ultimately the buck stops with you guys. So we're happy to have over 60 local policymakers here and really focused on building capacity of those policymakers. We're also going to be focusing more this year on social and racial inequity and how do we close that gap. And we understand that that will be critical to making sure that we have stable, resilient, and prosperous communities moving forward. So you'll see that reflected in the program tonight and throughout the entire conference. So across more than a dozen subject tracks, the program will feature tools and trainings and new technologies to help you transform your communities now. Many of you have literally weathered storms to be with us, so we're glad that you're here tonight, that you're safe, and that you've been able to make it. And you're in good company. We have over 1,200 people from across almost every state in the nation that has joined us. And we actually have some international participants as well. We have a delegation from Thailand for the third year in a row. Are any of our folks from Thailand here tonight? Oh, there they are. Welcome. Glad to have you guys. We have some folks from Mexico as well. Are our folks from Mexico here? Well, we'll applaud them anyway. We're glad that they're here. And we also have a range of leaders from federal, state, and local. And like I said, representing, a number of different disciplines. This is a very multidisciplinary conference, so it brings a lot of unique perspectives and very unique lessons that each of these different sectors have learned. So we hope that you get a chance to do a lot of networking. So we hope your time at this conference will result in new partnerships, in renewed inspiration, and practical tools to increase your community prosperity and resiliency in the years to come. Looking across the nation, it's clear to me that all the hard work that all of you are doing, it's really making a difference. And it's you guys that are the leaders that are creating really compelling models for communities across the nation to follow. So thank you for being here, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your ongoing commitment to community change. And at this time, I'm trying to see if he's back there, I have the great pleasure of introducing the Regional Administrator for the U.S. EPA Mid-Atlantic Region, Mr. Shawn Garvin. Oh, there you are. I couldn't see with the lights. So Mr. Garvin's responsibilities include administering federal programs, governing air and water pollution, industrial discharges, the protection of streams, lakes, and bays, and the protection of public health in communities in Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Shawn Garvin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. It's really great to be here this evening with you and Jake, and of course our featured speaker, who I'll be announcing in a second. I'm suspecting this isn't for me, but it's always good to have a gavel up at the podium. Thank you, Jake. You're always very hospitable. I'd like to thank the Local Government Commission for presenting this conference, as well as all the benefactors, patrons, supporters, and friends. I'm delighted to be part of this welcoming committee here in Baltimore, one of our most innovative cities in the Mid-Atlantic region, to host this 2015 Smart Growth Conference. I'm also very proud to participate in this conference because it aims to better support communities and practitioners like yourself that are building healthy, resilient neighborhoods, strengthening our economy, protecting our environment, and providing new opportunities. Please be assured that both President Obama and EPA Administrator McCarthy are firmly committed to policies that are making visible differences in our communities. EPA is proud to be a sponsor of this exciting event for the 14th year now. The conference gets more diverse and more inclusive each year as it moves from city to city across the country. We see more and more innovative examples of sustainability emerging every year. For example, cities as diverse as Philadelphia, Chicago, Cincinnati, and Seattle are finding ways to employ green infrastructure to not only manage stormwater runoff, but to create more walkable streets, enhance property values, and attract private investments to clean up brownfield sites. And we need to be conscious that the debate about climate change is over and that it is a fact. Thank you. As such, we must collectively confront the challenges it poses not only to our environment, but to our society. Many local communities recognize the threats posed by climate change and are redeveloping in ways that will allow them to adapt. From Hurricane Sandy to Tropical Storm Lee, we're witnessing a wide range of strategies where communities are rebuilding from disasters in ways that increase sustainability and reduce vulnerability. For example, creating waterfront parks and walking and bicycle trails within flood-prone areas and rebuilding more compact, walkable development on higher ground does much more than enhance both the environment and quality of life, as well as increasing the economic vitality in a community rather than simply building a levee to hold back the water. EPA recognizes that in moving forward, we must work at the community level if we're going to be successful at addressing core environmental challenges such as climate change and protecting sensitive land and water resources. That requires us to maximize our effectiveness by developing innovative partnerships with state and local governments. Partnering helps us make a bigger difference within communities by using our resources more efficiently and getting the most out of every dollar spent to help ensure that the needs of both current and future residents are met. We know that smart planning and making sustainable choices about how and where we build can produce significant benefits at our local and national economies, as well as public health, the environment, and people's everyday lives. And that means all of our communities, not just a select few. It means continuing to focus our attention on improving the environment in communities that have been adversely and disproportionately impacted by exposures to the environment and hazards and pollution. Everyone wants to live and work in a healthy place, and we must find better ways of addressing the needs of people and communities that have been left behind. Success in environmental justice communities demands innovation, sustainable solutions, integrated with community development and private investments. Projections for more extreme weather events show that these disproportionately burdened communities will be most at risk as our climate changes. That's why this conference is so relevant to all that we do as government and community leaders working for a better future. The relationship building that will take place and the ideas and solutions that you'll come away with can help us all in preparing our infrastructure for a changing climate and building resiliency, sustainable places that are healthy and thriving. We've already seen the sustainable communities are more resilient to the effects of climate change and resulting economic disruptions. They protect our air and water by producing fewer greenhouse gas emissions and other pollution and encouraging cleanup and reuse of contaminated sites. They preserve our farms, forests, wetlands, and other green places by developing projects with community support on already developed land that directly improves the quality of life in local neighborhoods. Retaining the existing footprint also keeps development from spilling into places that are not as safe, like floodplains. By preserving trees and other vegetation, they can reduce the heat island effect. They make communities more economically resilient by ensuring that there are affordable, attractive, and convenient places to live, work, and shop. As you may have noticed, I am fairly passionate about this topic and could go on and on and on. But I have another job here, a job that is one that I always relish. But before I turn it over to Mayor Rawlings-Blake, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some examples of collaboration that have taken place under her leadership towards making Baltimore a more sustainable city. Now, the first time I met the mayor, we did a Children's Health Month event back in 2011. We were providing funding to the mayor's Healthy Environment for City Kids initiative, which really was focusing on lead and mold and a lot of the everyday impacts that our urban children and really all our children face. And part of our mission at EPA is, or actually our mission at EPA, is protecting both public health and the environment. And so I want to take 1 second to give a little sidebar public announcement, which is part of protecting the public health is also making sure that our families have affordable health care. And so if you know of anybody who does not have health care, the ACA Affordable Care Act open enrollment closes February 15th, which is coming very quickly, so make sure folks get out and enroll. A couple of examples of some of the things that are happening here in the city of Baltimore are earlier in the year, I joined the mayor at the Federal Hill neighborhood, where they were providing the city with a grant to advance the cleanup and redevelopment of their local brownfields. Back in September, the mayor and I announced the Growing Green Design competition where EPA, the city, and the Chesapeake Bay Trust contributed funds that are enabling communities here in Baltimore to experiment with new design concepts and ideas to transform vacant lots into assets for their neighborhoods and their environment. All of this is really part of what the mayor is focusing on as part of her 6 pillars of growth: better schools, safer streets, stronger neighborhoods, creating jobs and growing the economy, a cleaner, healthier city, and an innovative government. I could literally spend hours talking about all the great things that the mayor has done and really moving forward what, Charm City becoming a much more greener and resilient city. But enough about what we're doing together. I think we all want to hear from a person who really has been a national leader in sustainability and the environment as Vice President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Mayor of Baltimore, my friend, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake.
I hope someone was recording that very kind introduction. I am honored to have such a great introduction by our regional administrator and the mayors who are here with me, particularly Mayor Soglin and Mayor Stadler. I know that you get it, that not all regional directors are made equally. And I'm very, I always brag about you. I'm very pleased that we have Shawn, Garvin. We've had a great working relationship and have been able to do great things for Baltimore. And I appreciate the collaboration and your interest in making sure that Baltimore continues to move forward on a sustainable path. So thank you for being here and for the introduction. And good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm honored to be here with all of you today. It's been an exciting day in Baltimore, not just because we've been sprinkled with snow, but also because, I don't know if you heard, but we just announced Billy Joel's coming July 25th. So if you're looking for a reason to come back, July 25th, Billy Joel. See that? I'm already planning your next trip back to Baltimore. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you all to our great city. I know I'm a bit biased, and I think you've, even though I'm biased, I know that you've made a good choice in bringing the conference back to the East Coast. Baltimore is a great city, a city of neighborhoods, each with its own charm, and I implore you to take some time and to enjoy all that Baltimore has to offer. I'm telling you this not just because I like to brag about Baltimore, but because I believe in taking every opportunity to tell a visitor to Baltimore City what it's really about. We are Charm City, and I believe that, we are a very unique city. I say that, John Waters, is from Baltimore, and he says that the difference between Baltimore and New York is that people in New York, think that they're odd, unique, and, weird, but they're all normal. And the people in Baltimore, we think we're normal. So we have our own charm here and so much history. We just celebrated the 200th anniversary of the writing of our national anthem that happened here, and I know that the mayors, I think both of you had a chance to visit when I hosted the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual meeting a few years ago, and we got to see fireworks and experience a great evening where that history took place. So we do have a lot to offer, and I hope that you get a chance to visit it, because I hope that you see the Baltimore that I know and love. The Baltimore that is growing and continues to set the standard for other municipalities to follow, particularly with our budgeting practices. Baltimore, like many cities across the country, faced a structural budget deficit. Ours was about $750 million, and I think I'm still, the mayor's the only one that has a 10-year financial plan to eliminate the structural deficit. Many mayors looked at me like I had 3 heads when I said I was going to plan for a 10-year plan for our financial future, but it allowed us to cut that structural deficit by more than half, and I'm really pleased about what we've been able to do. And basically because I know that if my dreams for Baltimore are to be realized, it has to be realized on the back of fiscal responsibility. I want Baltimore to be a place where every resident can succeed and where we can find the basic necessities that you need to raise a family. And I see Councilman Bill Henry. Thank you very much, Baltimore City Councilman Bill Henry is here as well. And I want Baltimore to be a place where every family knows that their child has a chance to make it. And a key goal of my administration is to grow Baltimore by 10,000 families over the next decade. And I feel like if I keep working on our regional director, I might be able to count him as one of our new families over the next decade. And I know in order to grow a city, we have to attract new residents. I think most importantly, you have to give those residents who are already here more reasons to stay. And that's no easy task, but each day Baltimore is making progress. For decades, we watched our population decline. Businesses shut their doors and communities were abandoned. Many of those left our city because of our property. That they said it was because of the property tax rate, which is the highest in the state, close to double those surrounding jurisdictions. And I pride myself on being a mayor who does not kick the can down the road when it comes to big challenges. I often say that I have no interest in being the mayor of a city that is in decline, and that when I'm done as mayor, I want my legacy to be about growth. Well, as many of you know, growth doesn't happen on its own. Cities have to make smart and tough investments in order to reverse decades of decline. My first step was to get our fiscal house in order, and all while working to steadily reduce our property tax rate. As I mentioned, I implemented the city's first 10-year financial plan, known as Change to Grow, to create a well-defined roadmap for growing Baltimore's economy and responsibly cutting our property taxes. Our Change to Grow plan has already cut a $750 million structural deficit in half. We've shrunk the retirees' health liability by 2/3 and reduced the property tax rates on homeowners by 6%, with additional cuts that are on their way. These reforms, in turn, earned the city its first bond rating upgrade in nearly 8 years, signaling confidence in Baltimore as a hub for economic growth. Thank you. It also affirms the economic progress that we've made. Today, Baltimore is experiencing a renaissance. For the first time in a generation, we're seeing population growth. Thousands of new jobs are being created. Blight is being eliminated at a record pace. New schools and recreation centers are being built for the first time in a generation. And we're making progress in the crime fight. To keep our city moving forward, I'm focused on concrete steps that will make us a more sustainable city. Broadly speaking, my vision for growing Baltimore is focused in 3 key areas: revitalizing our schools and neighborhoods, making Baltimore a more desirable and affordable city in which to live, and leading in sustainability. I believe that the foundation of a growing city has to be built on a 21st century education system. We have a solemn responsibility to build better schools and provide our young people with exceptional education to enable them to have the futures that we all know that they deserve. When I came into office, we were faced with dilapidated and outdated school buildings across our city. Mayor Soglin, it was embarrassing to go around and to look at some of these school buildings. It hurt my heart to hear the principal telling me that her pre-K kids had to drag their little desks down the hall after a heavy rain, because every time we had a heavy rain, their classroom flooded. And to see the classrooms with ceiling tiles coming down, classrooms with inconsistent heat, many classrooms that you couldn't see out of the windows, and bathrooms that I used to say that you wouldn't send your mother-in-law to until somebody told my mother-in-law that I was saying that. But bathrooms that you wouldn't want to send, that were just so substandard. And certainly, if you hadn't been in a school, you wouldn't think that this is what your kids were up against when they were going to try to get an education. And many of the buildings, the schools were built in the early part of the 20th century, some even in the 19th century, and the conditions of those buildings were absolutely deplorable. As I said, leaking roofs, leaking foundations, unreliable heating and cooling, unusable bathrooms had all become the norm. And I knew that we couldn't continue on that path if we were serious about growth in Baltimore. I understood we had to grow beyond the tired old arguments of the past and make the difficult choices necessary to build a school system that our young people deserve. I worked very hard with education advocates, with community leaders, with our legislators at every level of government to secure $1 billion of school construction funds that will help us transform not just the buildings themselves, but in doing so transform the lives of our community for generations to come. Stronger schools and stronger neighborhoods go hand in hand, and we can't afford to waste millions of dollars in investment in schools without also serving those surrounding neighborhoods. We need a targeted and personalized strategic plan to ensure the long-term growth of our community and our communities. And that's why I'm so excited about our Inspire program. This innovative planning program focuses on improving neighborhoods that surround our revitalized schools by guiding private investment and identifying specific public improvements to support communities so they can then better support those schools. Because when students and families have their basic needs met, kids are more likely to attend school, and they're also more likely to do better. The councilman knows we had a school opening last year in a community in North Baltimore called Waverly. And to walk into that school, and this was just one brand new school, a fully renovated school, to walk into that building and to see the pride on the face of those students. Yes, the teachers were excited. They were in, glossy, new, state-of-the-art classrooms, but the kids, to see the pride that they had and the excitement that they had about coming to school, knowing that they had a school building that reflects the hope for their future, I knew that what we were doing was meaningful, and that what we were doing when it comes to school construction is really going to make a difference in our communities. After decades of population loss, our city was plagued with not just dilapidated school buildings, but also 16,000 vacant and blighted and abandoned properties. And while these buildings were often viewed as a problem, I think the sign of leadership is to look at a problem and see an opportunity. So I challenged my administration to develop an innovative plan to take advantage of these spaces. And in November of 2010, we unveiled Vacants to Value. This unique initiative works to renovate, reoccupy, or demolish blighted properties. This unique work to renovate, reoccupy, and demolish is clearing the way for future development and is clearing the way for productive use in these neighborhoods that are long overdue for some attention. Vacants to Value is a market-based and data-driven initiative to help spur growth and reinvestment in our city. Cleaning up and redeveloping these properties can enhance neighborhood safety, it can raise property values, it can create community amenities, increase local tax revenue, and attract new residents and businesses. In order to get this done, we reorganized our Land Resources Division to make the purchase of city-owned property faster and easier. For years, there had been complaints in Baltimore that if you wanted to purchase a city-owned property, on the one hand, if you just went online and tried to find your way on your own, it could take months and months and months, and you could still come up with nothing. And then someone said, well, if you know somebody that knows somebody, you could get it done in 90 days. That's no way to run a city. And I knew that we could do better. There had to be transparency. There had to be predictability. There had to be a level playing field, and that's what we've worked on. We've implemented code enforcement initiatives to encourage renovation. We've expanded our receivership process to compel the sale of vacant property. And again, I have to thank the councilman. He introduced a piece of legislation that I recently signed to give me another tool in the toolbox to help frustrated communities deal with vacant properties. You know the ones who, it's your grandmother's house and nobody wants to get rid of it, but no one's really taking care of it, and it's in a solid community where people care about their property values and keeping it up. Well, because of Councilman Henry's legislation, we now have a new definition for vacant structures that's going to help us bring relief to those communities. I want to publicly thank you again, Councilman, for your commitment to working together to help solve some real problems for Baltimore's communities. We also created a $10,000 initiative to allow eligible home buyers to more easily purchase rehabilitated houses. And I will tell you that with the layering of the different home incentive programs, the Live Near Your Work and the Baltimore Home Ownership Incentive and the Live Baltimore incentives and grants, people are coming to the table to purchase a home in Baltimore with upwards of $40,000. In Baltimore, that's a big deal to be able to come to the settlement table with $40,000 to reduce the price of your home, and it makes the dream of home ownership a reality. And I talked about the fact that we have to attract new residents. Yes, about 30% of those who are buying homes with these incentives are new to Baltimore. But as I said, the most important thing is to give those residents who are here more reasons to stay, and 70% of those are those who live here who decided to continue to live here and to reinvest, and that's so important to me. And thanks to Vacants to Value, we've spurred more than $100 million in private investment in struggling communities while tearing down or rehabbing over 3,000 dilapidated properties throughout the city. However, that's not our only challenge. Baltimore, like many other cities, is also impacted by vacant lots, particularly in our distressed communities. That's why we launched our Growing Green initiative to transform city-owned vacant land into green spaces. We wanted those green spaces to provide economic, social, and environmental benefits to our neighborhoods. This initiative uses greening techniques to restore communities while strategically holding land for future development and improving public health and public safety. I was blown away by the proposals that came from these communities with help of, they had technical assistance, but this was a community-driven process. And just to see the uniqueness of each neighborhood being reflected in these design applications, it was certainly encouraging to me. We recently expanded this initiative through a new partnership with Amtrak. With our Green Tracks partnership, we'll begin to improve the vacant houses along the Amtrak's East Baltimore route. Did anybody take Amtrak to get here? Anybody? All right, so I encourage you to come back in about a year or two. You're going to see a whole new, what do you call that front door? What do you call it? The curb appeal. We're going to have all new curb appeal in Baltimore as you make your way into the city. It's long been an eyesore for residents and travelers, and I was determined to do something about it. Together, we will take advantage of strategically demolished vacant housing and connect green space to ongoing revitalization projects throughout the surrounding neighborhoods. Excuse me. Making Baltimore a more desirable city and certainly a more sustainable city. Since I entered office, I've been focused on ensuring that Baltimore becomes a national leader in sustainability in a way that encourages our stakeholders to partner and to reduce their energy consumption and to work to preserve our environment. That's why we kicked off our Growing Green initiative to find sustainable, innovative, and cost-effective practices for reusing that vacant land, for reducing stormwater runoff, promoting locally grown food. I see one of our urban agriculture folks right in here. I know you're dressed up. You probably think I didn't recognize you. I recognize you, blazer and all. Our locally grown food and our greening neighborhoods to set the stage for future redevelopment. These green networks will help us to ensure that Baltimore grows into a city that we're all proud of, that our children and our grandchildren and beyond that will be proud of. So as you can see, we have a lot to pat ourselves on the back about. I haven't even discussed our success, the success of the partnerships with our anchor institutions to address community problems or the incredible incentives we're providing to lure families back into these revitalized communities. I could go on and on and on. But I will sum up my remarks by saying, in order to build long-lasting and sustainable communities, you have to be bold, and you have to be willing to take on the tough challenges many before you may have passed on. Baltimore has finally turned a corner and begun the process of reversing decades of decline. Right now, Baltimore is growing, and by thinking smarter and continuing to make difficult choices, we will ensure Baltimore's growth into a great community for years to come. We look forward to sharing some of our ideas, and as the mayors know, stealing a few of yours. We're known for that in the Conference of Mayors. Throughout this conference, I know that we're going to get a lot of great ideas that we will immediately call our own and take credit for. So thank you again for choosing Baltimore to host this conference. I hope that you'll take advantage of, again, our charming neighborhoods and see what we have to offer. I know that you won't be disappointed, and thank you again, and welcome to Baltimore.